I'm a songwriter. Like, that's what I've been doing since the age of 6. You know, you can believe, you can dream, you can do all this stuff, but without the action, it's dead.
Bryard Huggins is a composer, record producer, and incredible contemporary jazz pianist. He's toured with the legendary Gladys Knight and has released 7 studio albums to date. Today, we sit down with him to learn everything about music, composing, and everything in between. Let's get into it. So, the theme song that everyone just heard was composed by the very Bryard Huggins, who is sitting here right with us today. We absolutely love this theme, and it's such an honor to get to play that at the front of all of our episodes. Can you tell us kind of a little bit about maybe some of the influences that we asked for and what the process looked like for creating that?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you both for having me. I mean, this is absolutely incredible what you guys are doing. I'm a huge fan, love both of you to death, and I know you guys are going places because this podcast is everything.
We truly appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. Here's the funny thing. So my whole essence of creating music comes from sometimes just like little instruction. So somebody could just be like, oh, I just kind of have a little, idea in my head. I kind of want it to sound like this, but I'm not really sure. Here's my reference track. Here's my inspiration. Take it and run with it. Those are the words that you can tell me, and I will do exactly that. Like, if anybody just says, like, I really don't have as much instruction, just like something that kind of sounds like this, but I'm not really sure, but use your own interpretation. That's the best thing you could ever tell me my entire life, because I will take it, I will run with it, and I will always deliver you something better. So with the clothespin thing, it was so much fun because when Tay was like, hey, brother, we're looking for a Herbie Hancock, like funky jazz acid kind of situation. And I'm like, I immediately know what you're talking about. And then you said Headhunters, Chameleon, all that. I said, I got it. Okay, let me bring out the Rhodes. Let me bring out the electric bass. Let me bring out the drum patterns. Let me do all this stuff.
Yep.
What I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure that I did not, obviously infringe on copyright. So I was able to kind of rearrange it and just switch up the patterns to where it still gave you guys that same vibe that you're looking for. But at the same time, it was presenting something completely new because this is a new venture. So I kind of wanted to be, part of that whole thing. So yeah, it really came out in about 30 minutes and put it down and sent it to you. Then I went to Sweet Green.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think Tay and I kind of have to like wake ourselves up and be like, it's actually real that we have this original theme for our show, and we're incredibly grateful for it. So we love every chance we get to play it.
I'm so glad y'all like it. One of the things that I wanted to make sure, because when you told me it was going to be on, it was going to be like a visual podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, people are going to probably be listening to this, through headphones and watching you guys too.
Right.
And I know that y'all don't do anything shoddy, so I know it was going to be professionally done. So I'm like, the sound of the song has got to be like sonically good as well. And so I really wanted to make sure like all the levels were good, that there was enough high end, low end, that certain things were panned left and right, just to give a little bit of ear candy to keep things interesting for the song and for you, so I was honored to do it.
Shifting gears here, Bryard, I want to talk about composing. I want to kind of break down some of your artistry on a more personal level and what composing looks like for you, specifically in the film world. We've talked about some of the projects you're working on, but what type of, creative input do you have on score when you're making it, when you're collaborating, specifically in the ones that you're kind of driving? What does that look like?
Yeah, one thing I had to really learn was that the director is the boss, and the buck stops with production pretty much. So whether it's my brother, who, Bryard Huggins, who you guys, if Tay, him, Spencer, I'm sure you've heard of him. He's a director. So when I do his films, it's a funny dynamic because we're related, and I always make fun of him. So I'm like, well, who gave you the authority? But I know that like in the business process, the buck stops with him. Like I've gotta listen to what he wants. But any other, like a random person that I'm working with, really, I have learned that, that a lot of times they don't know musicality like I know musicality. They just know this is the essence of what I want. This is the vibe of what I want. We're going for something like this. They can't clearly communicate it from a musical level, more so from a mood, a tone, a style level, which is great because I can understand that.
Yeah.
So usually what I do, and I guess it's not to my detriment, but I'm a songwriter. Like that's what I've been doing since the age of 6. And so when I started getting into film composing, I come at it from a songwriter's perspective, which sometimes does help, but sometimes the scores can become too sing-songy. So I had to just make sure that I'm just doing exactly what they're asking as far as style, but still measuring that and leveling that with my own interpretation of what they're wanting, the film that I'm watching, being able to capture the essence and the emotion of the film. That's super important to me, and to just give the director like pretty much what they're going for. 9 times out of 10 they're like, this is beyond what I expected, and that's not me being braggadocious. That's just it is what it is. That's
Right.
Yeah.
It's just being able to interpret what they're asking for. And then obviously there are revisions and different things like that. But I always say that the gift that I have, people are like, oh, you just play piano really well. No, that was like the cherry on top of the cake. But the gift that I was given was musical interpretation.
Sure.
So I'm able to conceptualize it and spit something else back out that is worthy of whatever somebody's looking for. And it's served me well for 28 years. So
That's amazing. That mantle, though, is so huge, though, to ask someone to create a sense, to create audio, something you hear, that not only connects with the story that elevates and moves forward, but also is beautiful. I mean, when I'm writing, I need music. And it has to be specific. It could be Nas, it could be E40, it could be whatever it is, or it could be country. Like it depends on what is required of me in the writing process. So, and it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah, and with this idea of this kind of communication dynamic between a composer and a director, it seems like there's a lot of times difficulty from the director to properly explain kind of what their vision is. Are there any like strategies or things that from the composer's perspective would be helpful for the director provide, whether that's skills they should learn, music terms? Like how can directors best support composers?
That's actually an amazing question. Honestly, I'll be honest, I don't know. Every director is different. It's hard for me to jump into that lane and kind of say like, this is maybe what they should do per se. I think the one thing I would say actually is, and I tell directors this all the time that I have, the blessing to work with, I'm like, be as specific as possible. Because the more specific you are, especially if you're a non-music person, if you're just like a director who enjoys music or knows what they're looking for as far as, like I said, style or essence, but they can't explain musically, I'm like, it's best to just hushity hush about the music. Don't even try to explain, oh, it needs to be in C minor with like a flat 5 here. I'm like, don't.
That's your job.
That's not. Yeah, stay in the lane that you are in respectfully, because it's easy to communicate, because I can fill in those gaps and allow myself to kind of give that feedback creatively on my end, and then we'll have a marriage of the minds, and sometimes we'll be like, this is not exactly what I was going for, but I like this part. Let's maybe change up this, or the emotion is not really here. Can you maybe find something that, and then they might start going into instruments that they want to hear, like maybe like add like a synth or something to like bring it all together. And that at that point, the foundation is already there. So it's helpful for me to be like, okay, now we can start talking specifics, because you've heard, what you've heard, and you want something, very specific. So I'm able to, deliver that.
That's right.
So I think just being as specific and as particular as possible in the asks really helps the composer to really narrow down what it is they need to do. And I think it eliminates some of the feedback and the back and forth over time that, could be a waste of time if they're trying to get a movie out. If you get it right on, if you get it pretty much right on the first run as a foundational score, then there's obviously room to tweak and do different things, unless you're just completely wrong. And that's happened. I have been completely wrong. What I thought was good, they just did not like. And it could just be a luck of the draw, or I guess an unluck of the draw. It's just like, this is just not working out. And it's fine. I don't expect to hit the head on the head every single run, but welcome to the industry. It's all subjective.
And do you ever find directors providing like temp tracks or reference tracks, whether that's like, hey, this song that's already out in the world is like kind of exactly what they're envisioning for the scene? And if so, how do you take that and still make it its own original piece while trying to fulfill what they want?
That's an amazing question. No, I literally just had this conversation the other day with a production company that I'm working with out of Boston, and I'm about to score this documentary feature, and we were talking about how the process is going to go with delivery and rough cuts, and then the picture lock and the fine cut and all that stuff. And so the editor was like, "Do you want me to put in a temp track?" I'm like, at first I would have said no, because I don't like anything to cloud my gift from coming out. You know, I don't want anything to like sway me from one way to another. I like to be able to think about it and breathe it in, and then just release whatever needs to be released. And then if I need some, you know, a little crutch, then I'll ask for it. But I feel like, you know, now I've kind of seen a temp track being provided to me as just a tool to just help kind of narrow things down, because I'm a crazy person. I need help. I really do need help, because my mind goes all over the place. You know, sometimes just in conversation, I'm just like, ooh, that could be this, and then you could do this, and then, oh my God, this can happen, and then there could be a score here. And I'm a Scorpio, so I'm very much just like, everything is like this, and then that, and that. So I have a problem. I have a problem. I've had a problem.
That's
and so
awesome.
to keep me on track, Bryard needs to have like, and I'm talking in, you know, obviously the third person or whatever, first person, but I need to have a guardrail, you know, and that's where the temp tracks come in.
Sure.
You know, where I can just kind of, you know, I can kind of stay in the lane where I need to stay in, even just from like a vibe perspective. You might listen to like 30 seconds of it or 15 seconds of it. I'm like, okay, I see where they're going. I got it.
Yep. No, I follow that.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Logistically, when are you brought on a project? When it's a score for a film? Is it at the very beginning after script is greenlit? Is it mid-production?
It varies.
Yep.
It varies. Depends on really what kind of project it is. Because scoring doesn't just involve, I know we're talking about like film and TV and stuff
Sure.
like that, but I've also done original music for a stage play.
Yes.
And so what was funny about that is that I groveled to them, and I came to them and I said, please let me do this. I said, it needs music. It needs original music. And I have so many ideas. Hadn't read the script at all. And he's like, well, here's the script, you know, read it. It just says music here, music there. And it was based on Cinderella. So I was like, the stepsisters need a song. Cinderella needs a song, all this stuff. And
This sounds right up
like,
your alley.
I'm like, that's all I needed. I'm like, Alan Menken, like, come on.
Yeah.
I can do it. And went back and basically spit out like 5 original songs based on just the surrounding scene.
Wow.
And I had the script there. I really didn't know the essence of what it was all going to become,
That's so
but I just
cool.
had the script. So that was a beautiful situation.
Sure.
I loved that. For film and TV, normally if it's somebody that I know, they're in the process of developing it, and they're like, hey, here's the little pitch. This is what the film's going to be about. I'd love for you to score it. I'd love for you to write an original song for it. I'm like, okay, bet. You know, and I'll most likely say yes when it comes down to me actually sitting at the piano, and they follow up with me. They're like, are you still good? And yeah, so it depends on just the type of project that it is.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever been brought on to anything like right when it's time for me to actually sit down and start doing the work. Normally it's weeks before, and then I'm the type of person that's just sitting there just like, where's your film? Like, I'm ready. I'm itching at the bits, waiting to do this. Y'all so slow.
Yeah.
Please, like, come on, give it to me. I want it. I'm hungry for it. And they're like, no, not yet. So it's a fun little game, but
It's a dance. Yeah.
it just depends. It depends on the project. Depends on the director.
Sure.
Yeah, well, you've had such an incredible amount of opportunity to score films and to work on all these projects, even with this upcoming feature documentary. That's super exciting.
Thank
What
you.
are some of the, I guess, like strategies or anything that served you well in terms of getting these opportunities that maybe will help someone out there trying to do the same thing as you?
The biggest thing, and I tell the people this all the time, and artists that I've managed, artists that I've mentored, staying humble is the key. And people are like, okay, yeah, humble. No, like, truly, one thing I have learned throughout my career is that being a decent person is literally 90%, if not 99% of the job. of getting anything, of doing anything. The other 1% is talent, merit, resume, whatever, whatever else, accessibility, geographic location, the logistics, whatever. But in my opinion, you've got to be a decent person and a humble person and know that you're creating something that's going to make people feel. I feel like you can't put a price on an emotional response to something, be it good or bad. That's just the human connection with something. So it's not a tangible situation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think that going in with a humble spirit and knowing that this is something that, yes, it's bigger than yourself, and yes, it is business, but it's still something that you enjoy doing. It's something that's going to serve well. Whatever project somebody else is doing that's going to make people feel some kind of way about this, or it's a story that could touch somebody. I think that's number one. I think number two would be staying as versatile as possible. It's taking advantage of every opportunity that may come your way, as long as it's within your convictions. Obviously, then you don't go jump out a window, and play music as you're going down to your death. Like, don't do that. But staying as diverse in your skill set and trying different things that might be outside of your comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? That's what's most important. I feel like those two things really have served people well in this industry, especially being here in LA, where you are a small fish in a really, really big pond. So if something happens, like when COVID happened, a lot of people were performing. It's like, what happens when we can't see anybody? You have to pivot, and now you focus on something else. And that's just the beauty of the industry. There's so much you can do, and normally if you could do one thing, you most likely have the chops to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that you do a lot of live performance. You playing with Gladys Knight, playing with other bands. What did COVID look like for you, and what kind of adaptations did you have to make around that?
Yeah, so COVID was very interesting. So I kind of, when people ask me this question, I've kind of divided COVID into like March of 2020 to like November of 2020, and then November of 2020 on, because those first, what was that, like 8 months or whatever, basically I was just sitting pissed off. I was pissed off because January I was supposed to tour with Gladys. January I was supposed to go to be a featured artist for the Gilmore Keyboard Festival in Michigan. Mm-hmm. All these different things were supposed to happen that I was manifesting the year before. And in January, I had all of them. Like, I literally had all of them, like, within my grasp. And then slowly they started being taken away because of COVID. And I was just like, I truly cannot believe that this is actually happening. I felt duped. So I pretty much spent like the first part of COVID almost being bitter in a way of just the situation. And I'm sure everybody was probably in that boat. Just like, what are the odds? I was just completely ticked off about everything. But then I think what it allowed me to do, and I was starting to kind of do this without even knowing, was honing in on my craft, writing new music, the quiet, the fact that there was nothing else really to do, so I had no choice, allowed me to bring on some new projects, come up with some new ideas, do some different things. I started trying to give back to the community as much as possible and bring people some joy. So I started performing on Facebook Live for free, like an hour every month. And then Jaron, who also, my brother who plays keys too, we would do like dueling pianos, and we would get thousands and thousands of views. We would not ask for any tips. I'm like, if you're going to tip somewhere, tip to like the healthcare workers, like don't tip us. We're just doing this because we love to do it. I hope y'all are having fun. Just, giving people an escape for an hour to, tune out the noise of what was going on. But COVID, it was a blessing and a curse for me. And I think it ended up more so being a blessing, because as COVID rounded out and I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do post-COVID as the world was starting to come back.
Sure.
First, it was like, I've just got to get out of Nashville. I think that was just kind of like, I've done everything I can do here. I just need a change of scenery. I need a change of space. And obviously, once everything opened back up, got the call from Gladys in particular. She's like, we're back, choose your dates. What do you want to do? And that was November of 2021. And that was kind of like my impetus to think beyond Nashville and go to a different place, and obviously ended up in LA in May of 2022.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I love that you were able to turn what was a very unfortunate situation into something where you could create a little bit of light through those Facebook Lives, through continuing to work on your craft. So I think that's beautiful.
And just for context, I moved to Nashville June of 2022. No, June of... When did I graduate? Yeah, 2022. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know when I graduated. That's crazy.
You had to think about it.
No, I did, because it is so long ago in my head. To bring us back, Bryard, to composing, I have a question.
Yeah.
I imagine songwriting, composing as a very manic, scribbling on a Cheesecake Factory napkin, lyrics, and just heat of the moment. Oh my gosh, I have to stop my world to just write down this series of beats. Now, maybe it's just because I watched too many Bob Dylan docs or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's probably so.
Yeah, no, for sure. What does that process look like? Is it intimate? Is it outwardly? Is this something that you're sharing with people who are close to you? How much of what does that look like creatively?
It's very random.
Yeah.
I think that's how I can describe it best is, it depends on when the song comes and when the idea comes to me. And that's how it's always happened. I've woken up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I've got to at least voice memo this. It's crazy. And I've been in the bathroom and there have been songs and I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I bring my phone in here so I could, and I'm like, please. And I'm singing it. And sometimes my parents would hear me be like, what are you singing? I'm like, shh, say nothing. Yeah. I said, I've got to keep this in my, and then I come out and I literally just put it in my phone. I'm like, okay, good. Finally, now I can go and do something else.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so it's completely random how it works. For the longest time, I can remember ideas would just kind of come into my head. And it's not just ideas. What's crazy, and this is, I don't know if this is, again, a detriment, or maybe it's a detriment that I kind of put on myself. Maybe it's just pressure I put on myself. I don't know. But I feel like sometimes the ideas come, but then full production comes too. Like all of it, like I can hear it in my head. I'm like, I know exactly how the song is going to start, the middle of it, and how it's going to end, production wise. And I might not know all the lyrics, but I just know the sound. I know all the instruments. And then it's pressure for when I finally sit down on the keyboard and it doesn't necessarily, it's not coming out like I may have hoped or that I envisioned. And that's the hard part, because then I'm like, okay, it's just not time for it yet. Let me just shelve it and come back to it. I was literally, the most recent experience, y'all get a kick out of this. So I don't know if you guys have seen the Christopher Reeve documentary Superman.
We haven't. Have you?
It's in my queue. I haven't actually seen it though.
Get it off the queue and get it on your screen, because it's so good. It's so good. But anyway, so I'm watching it and I'm flying back to Nashville. I had a layover in Denver. This is Christmas. So I'm flying LA to Denver and then Denver to Nashville. So on the way from LA to Denver, I watched Home Alone because,
of course,
why not?
Of course, you have to.
Thank you, Southwest. Shout out. And then from Denver to, I'm not a paid spokesperson. Then from Denver to Nashville, I was scrolling through. I'm like, okay, same movies. Ocean's 8, Crazy Rich Asians. I've seen all these before. I'm like, ooh, the Superman, and I wanted to see it so bad. So I'm watching it. I'm 5 minutes in, and then literally I remember watching all the press for it. And I remember Will Reeve, his son, was in an interview, I think with Good Morning America, and he was talking about like how when his dad had the accident, how he was, Christopher was just like, he told his wife, just let me go. Like, I'm such a burden. I don't want to be a burden to you. I'm just not the same person. And his wife comes in and says, you're still you. And those were the 3 words that like helped him continue on and want to carry on, until obviously he passed in like 2004, I believe. But it was those 3 words that just like, gave me the will to fight. And so when I was watching the documentary, like I said, I was like 10 minutes in and I was like, I paused and I said, oh my God. I said, here it comes. It's coming. And I felt it downloading a song. And I picked up I paused the thing. I put my iPhone, notes up, and I was just like, you can, and these are the lyrics of the song, like, you can go down on Sunset for a facelift, or maybe dye your hair from blonde to blue. You can work out in the gym to look like Rocky. Doesn't matter. I still love you. You're still you. And I'm like, why did nobody think to write this original song based on Dana Reeves' 3 words that helped Christopher Reeve to fight? And I wrote the song literally within 5 minutes on the plane.
Wow.
That's
3,000,
actually sensational.
30,000 feet in the air, literally. So when you watch the film, you'll get it. But that's just an example of the most random times it just downloads. It was just downloading into me.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Cool. That's so
extraordinary. Cool. And so when you're in these moments, like something that Tay and I struggle a lot with writing specifically is,
which is very similar.
I do think so. It's hard to know when we're done. It's like, well, what if we could change this scene one more time or add a scene here? And there's no like easy point to be like, this is finished. So when you're scoring a film, how do you know when it's done, when it's finally time to send it off to the world?
You know, I that's a very tricky answer, because I could say when the director says it's done, but as the composer, like I always feel that when I compose, when I write to final product. I write with no revisions in mind, and I probably should get better at that, because I do know that, you know, in this industry, people are going to have questions, people are going to have feedback, people are going to pick your pieces apart. I might have to write a whole new piece. I might have to scrap another piece. I heard that about writing for Disney, which is one of my dreams, and I'm just like, ooh, like how in the world am I going to like deal with that? Because I fall in love with the pieces that I make. I don't want to see them taken apart, you know. Yeah. But you know, as long as they're paying, then you know, I'll take it apart. I'll do whatever you need me to do. But it's, I think for me, like again, I think I write to completion in my mind. I'm like, this I think is the best that I could do with my interpretation, with the story. This is what I think is best, and in my mind, it's final. In my mind, it's final. And I think if I go in with that attitude, I won't leave anything off the table. I'll lay it all out there, because I feel like it's easier to lay it all out there and create an everything but the kitchen sink situation, and then have the director be like, this is great. Now let's start peeling back.
Okay.
And that's easier for me. And that also sits better with my spirit as a creative, because I feel like my song is not being attacked. Because again, these are my babies, I feel like. So, you know, I don't like the nitpicking sometimes, even though I know that's the industry. It's hard for me to get the criticism. And even if it's constructive criticism, it's still very hard for me to stomach that. I don't think anybody does well with constructive criticism. It's hard when you create something and you're in love with it to have it, you know, kind of picked apart and maybe changed and stuff. It's like, oh, but I really like that. And so usually I go in, like I said, with a completed spirit. Like I'm going to finish everything. I'm going to do exactly what I need to do, as if this is going to be the final project, knowing in my mind it's probably going to be some changes. And then it's easier to peel back once you put everything on the table. And that just helps me kind of stay in my groove and doesn't throw me off with any kind of like, this is just horrible, throw it out, you know, situation. It's just like, this is great. Now let's start piecing it back, or let's change this and change that. And that's always very, very helpful to me. Saves my mental health too, because I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it's
we feel that.
Yeah, it's probably best to just stay calm and just go with the flow.
We've kind of spoken a lot about this idea of that sometimes composing is this collaborative element. And so on a professional level, what does collaboration look like when it comes to storytelling? It's a deeply personal and intimate process, but also when we're doing films and scoring and making the soundtracks for them, these films do take an army to make. And so how can you kind of maintain your vision as a creative while also still being part of the bigger organism that is a film?
Yeah, you know, I think that's where the humility comes into play that I was talking about earlier. You know, I think going in and knowing that you ain't the only one in the room, partner. You know, you're not the only creative that has a gift or an ear or a talent for music. Like, there's so many other talented people. And if you're blessed to be able to be in that same circle with them, even more magic can happen. So it takes a secure, humble creative to be able to sacrifice a little bit of their creativity, their vision, to listen and accept the interpretation of somebody else's, you know. And that's what is, I feel like, so key in this industry. And a lot of people don't have that temperament to do that, and that's okay. You know, everybody is different. I have definitely I've had to learn how to do that and how to sacrifice a little bit of my vision and know that it's, it is, I'm not the star of the show in this, and I never thought that I was a star. I just, I've always wanted, maybe wanted stuff like I wanted to do it on my own, but I found that working with other people has opened up a whole new world of possibilities, which is direct from like Aladdin. But it's, it really helps to bring the vision even more alive because you're getting a different perspective. Everybody's going to come at a project and see things differently, and I think I think that's beautiful. My first score collaboration actually was with Jaren's, and I'm name dropping him a lot, which is what's funny because he just called me, so his ears must be ringing. But he's doing his post collegiate directorial debut short film called Waking, and he obviously asked me a long time ago to score it and write an original song for it, which I obviously accepted. And then as we got closer to the process, he said, I would love for you to collaborate with one of my other friends. His name is Oliver Snook, and he's an incredible film score, composer, sound designer, went to school with Jaren. And so I'm like, I was a little hesitant. I'm kind of like, I've never done that before on an underscore. I've normally just like co-wrote songs. I've never done an underscore like, in a collaborative fashion. I don't know how this is going to work. And Jaren's like, you'll at least meet with him. So we went down here to Burbank and we met like last year. And I knew of his work. He's an incredible composer and just an incredible ear who doesn't play an instrument. He just thinks about everything, and somehow it comes out. And he's a genius. But I knew immediately that I was going to collaborate with him within like 5 seconds because I'm like, you're brilliant. I just wanted to just kind of give him, not give him the business, but like be like, okay, like, what are you thinking as far as all of this stuff? What do you think as far as the score? What are you going for? And immediately we were like in tune. And so when we actually were sitting down in the studio recording and producing the score, it was a marriage of the minds because he comes from a straight film scoring perspective and I come from a songwriting perspective. So he's a film scorer who can songwrite and I'm a songwriter who can film score. So it was just like,
yeah.
And it was perfect. And then what's funny is that Jaren was then able to go back and listen to the score and be like, I know what parts were Oliver and I know what parts were you.
That's super
And I'm like,
cool.
how do you know? Because he's like, I know you. So
Yeah.
I will do that. I will now do that more often because that was a hurdle that I had to jump, something I had not ever done before. But I would do it 10 times over because it just added to the magic of the film. And once you guys see this film, and you listen to the score, it's incredible. You probably will be able to know what was me and what was not. So it's a really cool process collaborating across the board. I think you have to open yourself up to that in this industry because everybody has a different take. Why not listen to somebody else's opinion and somebody else's perspective and roll with it, because you could share the same perspective. In the end, you could just be looking at it differently.
My next bullet point's actually around Jaren. So as we mentioned before, your brother, Bryard Huggins, very phenomenal filmmaker. I want to talk about your relationship with him as far as the film industry goes. So how has his kind of, I guess, attachment or connection to the film world affected your own relationship with the film world? And I guess vice versa, how has your relationship with the music world affected him?
Well, what you guys probably don't know about Jaren, I kind of touched on it earlier, is that Jaren started as a musician. So we both started playing by ear at the age of 4, both of us. And, I always joke and say, I taught him everything he knows. But, I do think that when you're in, your siblings and you're in a house together, you feed off of each other.
Sure.
And so now being in the same industry, really, I joke with him and I'm just like, oh, like he knows too much. Because he is that director that we talked about earlier in the conversation that does know too much because he's a musician, so he knows music. And so when he asked me to score stuff, it's funny because we have gotten into sometimes full on like shouting matches, creative shouting matches. One time over a violin.
Yeah.
I kid you not. He's like, I feel like it really needs like a. I'm like, no, it does not. And here's why. He's like, but I feel like it does. And my dad had to come and be like, sons, please. And so these are the arguments that we have. We hardly ever argue because we're literally the same person. but the arguments we have are creative arguments. We go back and forth. We can shut down a bar and just talk about creative situations and what he would do versus, you know, what I would do and why I'm always right and why he's always wrong.
Of course.
And so you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
I
a cool
tell
dynamic.
Tay the same thing.
It's the same.
Let's just be clear. I am never wrong. I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong. That's the point.
No,
Anyway,
and I'm with you on that, and I can co-sign
That's
that
right. That's
because I'm right. I always say that I'm right in my own way. I'm right in my own way, and you're not me, so you're not going to understand it. And he's like, "Well, I'm right in my own way too." I'm like, "No, you're just wrong."
I mean, can't argue with it.
you can't.
You've spent a lot of your career as a musician. You've released 7 studio albums. Is that correct?
No, hold on, let me count. Wait, yeah, and that was very humble. I just want to make that was very humble. I had to think about it. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
7.
So
Yeah.
so that's pretty extraordinary, and I guess we're curious to what extent the worlds of composing film and your work as a musician blend or influence each other. Does your work as a composer make your songs better? Does your songwriting make your composing better? And like, how do those two things inform each other?
Yeah, you know, I ever since I started doing smooth jazz, and I released my first album back in 2011. People would always say like your music sounds like you know, it could be from like a video game or from a movie. I think because of its simplicity, that's what I'm contributing it to. I think, but I've always been able to kind of create little jingles, and I think just people associated that with, oh, this sounds like video game music. Oh, this sounds like it could be on a commercial. I did do a little bit of work in the commercial field, which is what's funny. But you know, I think that you know, with my training as really a classically based training, moving to jazz and then moving to obviously smooth jazz, I think all of that just kind of conglomerated and allowed me to be able to translate a lot of that into the film composing sector, because really it is all the same in essence. You're really just pulling from different places, if that makes sense. So, you know, it's much easier for me to write a smooth jazz song like right now and give it to you versus like, you know, it's like, here's a scene, I need for you to score this and capture the emotion. So it's kind of like I kind of go down 2 different paths. It's like marketplace versus emotion. So emotion in the film score is to basically just enhance what's already being told in the story, done by the filmmaker, the director, the cinematographer, whoever. The marketplace is that I still have to eat. So I love doing it, and you know, people can kind of feel whatever they want to feel, but I'm not really evoking an emotion that's already like in my mind. I'm just creating music, and I put it out there, and then normally I just don't listen to it. I'm like, this is for the public to consume, and it's commercial, you know, versus film score is I have to try to get along with what's going on in the picture and what's being presented on screen, because it's a visual component versus an audio component. And so they do kind of marry each other. You know, it's still music across the board, and it's still creating. It's just, you know, again, being versatile, being diverse, and pulling in just different, you know, pulling in different perspectives, different parts of your mind to compose a film score versus to write an actual song, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And I'm curious, does sometimes working with the film, is it ever like a restrictive force to you because you're bound to what the picture is and the emotion of the scene?
I don't know. I feel like first and foremost, you have to, in some way, shape, or form, you have to be able to connect with what's happening on the screen. I've always, in everything that I've done, I've been able to connect with some aspect of it, because I do believe in, you know, first of all, getting the job and doing what needs to be done to enhance what's already been created. You know, I love doing that. Even though I might not be able to relate, I'm like, I can see it. I have something that I feel like would work really well. And so it really does depend. I've never run into anything to where I've just not been able to just connect with anything and it's just been a dud. There have been parts of my career where I've just been totally off, and I just thought, wow, I just completely just missed the mark on that. And it's totally fine, because then I just store it as library music, and it's going to be used for something else. So no, it's a very interesting question, because coming from a songwriter's perspective, the composing aspect of the career, and composing to picture, whether it's film and TV or whatever the case is, that's a whole other animal, because you are capturing an emotion versus creating an emotion,
Right.
from scratch. If you see what I'm saying
Yeah.
there. So it's a push and pull, it just kind of depends on what world you are in.
Sure.
But I don't feel like I've ever been bound in as far as that is concerned. If anything, I've been bound by direction. I'm like, why are you restricting me? I feel like it needs this. Like, nobody really does not need that. And that's one thing that I also kind of struggle with, was just is the guardrails. Even though I said earlier that guardrails are good, keep me in place, but within reason, And so when I translate out to different people, whether it's subcontractors or musicians or vocalists that I work with, and I want them to have the same amount of creative freedom as I would want for myself. But I always say, look, they're like, what do you want? I say, you know what, bassist, I'm kind of going for this. I said, but honestly, use your own interpretation. You'll feel it, but within reason.
Right.
Don't go crazy, but within reason, give your own interpretation. Then, like I said before, put everything out there. Then I can peel back. Be like, this is great, but chorus 2, can you do something more like a bum, 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 bum? And they normally are like, yeah, totally. Punch in, give it to me. I'm like, you're good. You're solid.
That's super cool.
It's a crazy. Here's the thing. Let me just say this. It's musicians and composers. Anybody who dabbles in music operates from a completely different. I mean, you guys also know this as creatives. We just as entertainers, period, operate from just a completely different realm where it's not even of physical earth. If you don't realize that, then that's a problem. It's got to be something. Universe, God, whatever. It's got to be something that is stirring all of this together, because music is an art. Art comes from a spiritual place, another realm that's not a tangible situation, because everybody can feel something from it. That's why they say music is a universal language. And Stevie Wonder says music is the world within itself, with a language we all understand, from Sir Duke, And he's right. No matter where you are, everybody knows music. Everybody can connect with music.
Yeah.
Not everybody can connect with law. Not everybody can connect with sports, maybe. But music is just something that is just foundational to human existence, I think.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's such an interesting point, because you're right.
was thinking the same
Despite
thing.
what anyone is passionate about or what anyone is interested in,
Yep.
it's almost certain that music is a heavy and large part of their life. So it's pretty extraordinary.
And just to open the doors to our lives a little bit, music is kind of foundational to our relationship. Luca, Spencer, and I put up a poster of Tupac in our dorm. Luca put up a poster of Kurt Cobain. And I remember, like, the first day we were doing this, and, like, I look at him, he looks at me, and it's like, this is going to be interesting. And now I listen to Nirvana. So, like, I don't know, the exchange that we as creatives have imparted, like, I don't know, I think I've shown you some classic hip hop. You've shown me some country and some other things like that. Like, I don't know, it's currency in a way. It's a way of exchanging.
Yeah,
it's
it
this
is.
beautiful kind of, I don't know, melange of creation that we all value so much. And I don't know, it matters to me and it matters to us on such a deep, rich level that, I don't know, it's larger than us. It's larger than
It's larger
than
yeah.
anything.
It's a bonding tool.
For sure.
It is a bonding. It's a connecting point. And if you can connect over music and art, then everything else is just like gravy. It's like, oh, you like business too. Like, oh, you like, I don't know, physical therapy too. I'm just pulling stuff out of my,
Yeah.
oh, you have an interest in oranges. Cool. But we love Tupac.
Yeah.
But we love Biggie.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case is.
That's right.
But I also found that like different musical tastes also can open up an unlikely friendship too.
Ooh,
I mean,
yeah.
as because you would just talk about, the Kurt Cobain versus like the Tupac, and it's kind of like, this is going to be interesting. It's like, yeah, that would be interesting, because Then the best discussions are like the who wore it best kind of thing.
Sure.
It's like, but that Tupac album, yeah, but Kurt Cobain and his, yeah, but Tupac did. And that to me is so much fun. I love debating
Yes.
music, and again, I'm always right.
That's right.
Of course.
That's right. You get it, Bryard. We get on such a high level of conversation. We reach that high level where, I don't know, we are talking about not just chord progression, not just, but we're talking about pockets. And okay, well, in Metallica Master of Puppets, they reinvent the chorus 6 times. It's like, okay. And then like in that one Illmatic song, it's also the same chord progression as that one Biggie song. And it's like, we're so locked in on that. And it's like, okay, how does this make us feel? And then we're talking about story and narrative and how it reinvents. Like, Brenda's Got a Baby is like the same reinvented story of like a Bing Crosby song from like the 1940s. And it's, we're so all over the place. And I love that. And I love that about film. I love that about music. I just love it all.
Yeah. It's important. I mean, again, universal language.
That's right.
I don't care where you are, it's something that we all can get.
That's right.
And it's bounded people throughout time, and that's so important, I feel like.
That's right.
And I think it's also taken for granted. We as musicians can be taken for granted because we might not get the business props, financial props, the rightful credit that we might get, and Lord knows we don't get that.
Yeah.
But it's so funny that the world consumes our stuff and wants more of it, more of it, more of
Sure.
it. I'm like, well, I'm part of the millions of people that help do that. Why is my bank account
Yeah.
when you're like listening and you like love my stuff?
Sure.
I don't know. That's not my conversation to have.
Speaking of Pac, LA.
Great segue.
There's the segue.
There we go. All right, LA, which proved too much for the man, but not for Bryard Huggins. I want to break down.
Yay! Yes.
Lucas laughing at me. You like that, Lucas? Come on, that was good.
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Someone appreciates me. So, I want to talk about the music scene in LA. So, what is it like being a musician in the city, and the culture associated with LA? I think we definitely associate LA with, movie making, what Hollywood, everything kind of in that realm. But to my understanding, there is a large music scene, and I don't just mean South Central hip hop scene. That's not the cliche understanding of what rap means. I mean like music and that language that we're talking about. Can you walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, LA, many people are a small fish in a really, really big pond.
Sure.
But I was literally, again, I was having a conversation because I have a lot of conversations with people just about life and stuff. The other day, and I said that exact quote, and they're like, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, small fish, big pond in LA. And I said, actually, let me change that. Small fish, big pond, but in that big pond, be a rainbow fish.
Yeah.
Be different. And it's entirely possible to do. That's why I moved here. I wanted to just be where the action was for what I wanted to do. And a lot of people are moving to Nashville because that's where the action is for where they need to be for what they want to do. And that's totally fine. But moving here, I needed to kind of take my life back in a way and do what I needed to do for my own self, career-wise and personal-wise. And one thing I've learned is that the scene here is really diverse in that there's so much going on and there's so many people doing it and there's pockets of it, but it's just it's a creative town. I don't know if you guys have ever been to LA. Have you guys both been to LA ever?
I have not.
Really? I didn't know. Yeah. I have.
You have been.
Yes, sir.
Have you not? Spencer, you haven't been?
I haven't been. I haven't even. The most west I've ever been was Tennessee. Yeah.
Really? Oh no. Yeah, no. Y'all need to come out here, and I've been trying to get this one out here for the longest time.
We'll definitely make it happen.
You need to come as this Tay right here, but y'all need to come as both of you guys right now because I think you'll pick up on it and you'll get it. You'll get it. A lot of people are just like, oh, Hollywood and yeah, but it's a whole other sector behind that. One of the things that I picked up on very, very quickly was that this is a creator's paradise, basically. I can go down to the coffee shop right around the corner, which I oftentimes do because I work from home. And the conversations that I have with people or that I hear from people are all pretty much creative. I'm nosy because I'm eavesdropping. Because I'm also looking for a job. So I'm just like, okay, there it looks like there's a filmmaker there on table 3 writing a script. Okay, I see writer's duet pulled up on that Okay, awesome. There is a composer. I heard musical terms from the corner of my ear, and I'm like, who is that talking about? So I'm just always listening and just observing my surroundings. But it's all creative stuff, even fashion design. Like, I mean, it's so much going on here. If you walk into just a plain coffee shop on the corner of Magnolia right over here, and it's a creator's playground.
Yeah.
You know, everybody is doing something for their creative career. And there's probably some, other people there too. But from what I hear, it's a lot of people that are like around our age that's their routine. They go, they grab a coffee, they chit chat with their friends, they talk about scripts, they talk about music, they talk about acting, they talk about whatever the case is. And it's a community aspect, which I love. And you quickly find your circle, and one of the things I did when I first moved out here was I joined 2 organizations. I joined the Recording Academy for the Grammys, the LA chapter. Shout out LA chapter. And I also joined the Society of Composers and Lyricists. And what those 2 organizations allowed me to do was in a town where I knew few people, I knew a couple people, but I didn't know a whole lot of people. I needed to expand my network of like-minded individuals in music. And so I convinced my parents, I'm like, can I just please put the membership, because I had no money at the time. Can I just please put this membership? It's a yearly membership. Can I just put it on like my emergency, like American Express card, please? And I'll Venmo you guys back. And my parents, God bless them, they're just like, son, do whatever it is you have to do to make those moves. We are here to support you. Whatever you need to do, whatever you need to join, just we'll deal with it. Just do what you got to do. And that has allowed me to then go and join those 2 organizations where I met amazing people and gotten jobs from those organizations just by knowing people, because it is a who you know town, but it's also a who you know who's going to open up their damn mouths and advocate for you town. Because it's one thing to know people, but if you're going to stay silent, then lip service is the bane of my career is lip service. You're going to talk a big game, but if you have the connections to take some action,
sure,
I would love to be a part of whatever it is that you're doing. And so kind of like, don't come to me like with all of these grand plans if you ain't going to like make it happen tomorrow.
Right.
It's great to wistfully say, I'd love for that. Everything you're saying, I agree with, but there's got to be some action that's taken. And, that is one of the things that I've also learned here in LA is that, you have to get in those circles. You have to make yourself a student of those circles in order to, get the credits, get the relationships, and also just make genuine friendships, people you can call on, people that you can collaborate with. Those people will remember your name, and then you also remember their names. If you needed something, or you knew somebody else who needed something, you could recommend, Sam from the Recording Academy. I remember he sung hip hop, or he did Cuban, or whatever the case is. And I know somebody that I met all the way up in Santa Clarita that is needing like a Cuban artist. Like, oh, let me recommend Sam. Let me, so we try to help each other out. I try my best to help as many people out as I can. I love putting people together. And it's a fun atmosphere. It's just, we're all out here just living our lives when we're not on fire. But, the town is on fire. Like, literally, there's a lot going on here, figuratively speaking. So it's a really, really cool place. Such a blessing to be able to be here.
Yeah, and this idea of like the actionable creative, I think, is really important, because Tay and I talk about this a lot. Our peers often talk about their grand ideas, whether that's this TV show they want to make, this movie they want to make, and these ideas are, of course, incredibly important. But there's also that next step of how do we actually act on it? What is the step we need to take to get it made? And so I think that's interesting, and I imagine it is pretty dense in LA, where you do hear a lot of the talk of the ideas, but it's like, how do we filter through who's actually acting on these ideas? Because it's one thing to talk about them, it's another thing to do them. So
it's another thing to do them, and it's the faith without works situation, I guess, in a way, because it's like, you can believe, you can dream, you could do all this stuff, but without the action, it's dead. You know, you could dream all day, but I'm like, I need action. I at this point in my career, enough dreaming. I need action. I know what my dreams are.
Right.
I need to act on it. I need to find people that are going to help me act on it. And that it is difficult. It's very hard to listen sometimes to those people who you know sometimes have connections and can do it in a heartbeat and talk about a lot of this stuff, and it just does not happen for whatever reason. And I know the industry gets in the way. That's the one thing that I do hate about Hollywood, is that it is a chain game, and it is what's the other word, like cliquish. It can be very cliquish, you know, so it depends on who you know and who's already maybe in there, whatever the case is. So, you know, the industry has its rotten parts, and the industry has its really good parts. But I'll be honest with you guys, I do not like the music industry. I hate it, actually. I hate it. It's unfair. It's cruel. It's not it doesn't help you financially sometimes. It's topsy-turvy. It's crazy. It's sick. It's all these different words. But what I do love is what I do. And so because I love what I do so much, and I've seen the impact that music and art has had on people, not just my fans, but just people in general, like I want to be a part of that. And I know where it comes from out to the public. And because of that, I'm like, I can rest easy on that part. No matter how crazy it gets in the physical world, I know that there's a higher power on my side, and I can flesh out whatever creative aspects I need to for the purpose of making people feel joy, feel happiness, feel love, feel whatever the case is. And so I can take kind of whatever comes at me, as long as that part stays true and I keep my mind on that. And of course, it's frustrating. You know,
Yeah.
it's frustrating as hell. You know, I want to quit every week, but I remind myself that, like, no, like, this is a process, you know, and it's a slow moving escalator that goes off until somebody places you out, puts you on a fast moving escalator that goes up like that overnight sometimes. So you could have a really quick rise. But right now, I'm just looking to just plateau.
Right.
I'm looking to plateau. If I could get up every morning and write for some entity or another, please let it be Disney, and get paid for it, and never have to leave my house for only, you know, musician conventions or performances or whatever side hustles,
Sure.
then I would be a very happy camper. A very, very happy camper if I could sit right there every morning in my pajamas, create a song, $50,000, there you go, and go on.
Sounds
And that's
like
how
the
it
dream.
works for a lot of people. I know a lot of people where that happens. So, you know, it's a crazy industry, but we love what we do out here. We love what we do, and the city really helps just invigorate that passion.
Well, you've had an extraordinary career and had so many amazing experiences. And as we start to kind of round out this episode here, one thing we like to ask our guests is there anything or any lesson that you've learned that you think could help potentially anyone listening to this right now? We're trying our best here as hosts, but we always know that there might be a golden nugget that we missed. And so is there any sort of piece of wisdom or lesson that you've learned that you think would be helpful to anyone out there?
Have your own shit, and you can bleep that out in post if you want, or not. Actually, leave it in. Why not?
We'll leave it in.
Sorry,
we'll leave it in.
Sorry, mommy. You know I have to say what I gotta say. Have your own shit. You have your own stuff. You really have to keep as much control over your creative assets as possible, I think. And that's something that actually one of my dad's friends told him to tell me, is basically have your own stuff. You know, because if you do that, you're not gonna have to worry about where's my, you know, I've sent it out to somebody and I haven't gotten it back. No. keep control of your own assets. Number one. Number two, still, be a decent person. Just be a decent person. Like, we're all out here trying to make it. You know, I can't stand the privilege of it all, the feeling like you're higher than thou situation. I just don't roll with that, and that's completely honest. I don't operate creatively in that, and then personality clashes. I just don't do well with that. A lot of people don't do well with that. The right people don't do well with that. So just being a decent person, willing to collaborate, as we talked about earlier, willing to go into places where you might be a little uncomfortable that you've never tried before. You know, taking advantage of any opportunity, especially out here in LA, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. And so the possibilities really are endless. And so, maybe being a yes man within reason is kind of what I would recommend. Especially in an industry where it's topsy turvy. You never know sometimes you don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. I don't know where mine's coming from. But I know that I have all these different opportunities on the back burner waiting, and it's going to work itself out. It always does. And then I would say 3, it's the same thing I said earlier. Be as diverse as possible. Try everything. What's that Shakira song? Try everything from Zootopia. Yeah, I've never.
I know exactly.
what you're
I
talking
love
about.
that.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that's where we went. I love it. Oh, yes, sir.
That's a good song. But it's
a great
true.
soundtrack.
I mean, there was never a truer song than that, because you have to be as diverse in your skill set in our industry, not just music, but even in film.
That's right.
I'm sure you guys can relate. I mean, Tay, we've talked about it. You're PA'd, you've DP, you've done all this stuff. You've even brought donuts or something to the set, or Slim Huskies or whatever. It's just, you do what you got to do to be in those spaces, because you never know.
We hustle.
Who's going to pluck you out, and
That's
be like,
right.
Yeah.
do you want to AD this? Or do you want to score this? Do you want to play on this tour or whatever,
Yeah.
That's just how it happens.
Wow.
That's right, man.
That's incredible. Is it briefcase time?
I think it's briefcase time.
Okay, so every episode on this show, we get asked a question by either our audience or Luca that none of us know. And we're going to dive into it. So, Luca, what is our briefcase segment for today?
My question is I want to know all 3 of your favorite film scores of all time.
Oh my God.
Oh, Bryard, were you able to hear that?
Favorite film scores of all... You said favorite film scores of all time?
Yes.
Do we have to pick just one?
Yeah, your favorite one.
Okay, we get one.
Oh, Jesus. Oh.
That is
Y'all y'all go first. That's a tough question.
That is really...
You should
Really
you should have
challenging.
said favorite film scores and original songs from a movie of all time. That one I got, but film scores, my God.
Hey, do you have an
I
answer?
don't think I have an answer. Hold on.
My brain is moving at 1,000 miles. I'm trying to flip through the catalog of movies that I've seen.
What, do you want me to simplify it?
No. This is a
we
great
got this.
question.
No, this is good. This is good.
Bryard, have you seen Dune 2? You have. You haven't? You have. No, yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I haven't seen Dune 1 or Dune -1. I haven't seen any of the Dunes.
Great score. You check that out for me
Yeah.
at some point.
This
You
is
know
tough.
what I think mine is?
What?
It's so kind of left field, but I think it just comes to me at moments. I think it's Ratatouille.
Interesting.
I think it's Ratatouille.
That's an incredible score.
So amazing.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with
Giacchino.
Ratatouille.
Okay. I think I'm a sucker for the recognizable score, the larger than life anthem
Yeah.
that we all recognize. And so I think I might have to say Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
All right, Bryard, what about you?
Okay, look, see, I'm toiling with so many, but I think I would say maybe as far as essence, just essence and majesty
Sure.
is concerned. Polar Express.
Oh,
Alan Silvestri.
Who also
man
did
could
Back
just-
to the Future. Who also did
just
Back
ca-
to the Future. So that's a cool tie there.
But see, okay. Let me real quick give a runners up. Let me give a runner up.
Okay, fair enough.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Danny Elfman. The main titles, and literally I play all the time. Particularly the main titles of when it shows the factory
Yeah.
and all that stuff. That music is absolutely the weirdest but the most brilliant situation I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I mean, Pure Imagination, the song.
No. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The Johnny Depp one. That one,
the Johnny Depp one.
The Johnny Depp one.
interesting.
Listen to it. Danny
We'll have-
Elfman.
yeah.
Luca's
let's listen-
shaking his head. Yeah.
let's listen to
Or
this.
nodding his head rather.
Does he
Yeah.
know it? He knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, I sure do. It's the better Willy Wonka
That is
movie.
not the better Willy Wonka.
Thank you. Yes,
I'm
it is.
sorry. Are we all serious right now? Okay,
Yes.
even maybe the score is better, but the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a better movie.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one, bro.
we'll have you'll bring me back for episode 2, and we will debate that. Because
Okay.
I'll tell you why the Johnny Depp one is better.
I look forward to it.
Johnny Depp does crush that role.
He does.
He does.
Okay. Well, to round us out here, we want people to know, where can they find all the stuff you're working on? Whether that's the films you're scoring, your 7 studio albums, how can they support Bryard Huggins?
They can find me on Instagram. My name is Bryard, Bryard official on Instagram. My website is www.bryardhuggins.com is my website. You can follow me on YouTube. It's at Bryard Official. Also, I think we still have TikTok in this country. So by the time this airs, if TikTok is still a thing, at the Black Piano Man, because I'm Black and I do piano stuff.
Love it.
But yeah.
It's amazing.
But with that, Bryard, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been
thank you
an
guys
incredible
so much.
opportunity
Thank
for
you,
us.
my friend.
I appreciate you sharing your knowledge,
Yes,
your
sir.
experiences, and all of that for us and for anyone else who may be listening. So a huge note of gratitude from us.
Thank you. That's right, Bryard. And it's so amazing to see someone like us doing it like us. So it's amazing to have you here, man.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. All right, that's a wrap.